Well, welcome to week 2 of Big God Questions. We are here today talking about why did Jesus come? That's our Big God question for the day. And I'm here with Chris Thomas, who has ever so kindly offered to join me as we
Happy to do it.
tackle this Big God question. So I'll just start with you, Chris. Can you just kind of introduce yourself a little bit and maybe say a little bit about how you got connected here at Grace Lutheran Church?
So my name is Chris Thomas. I started here 1980 something. My mom switched churches when I was in first grade. She wasn't happy with the pastor at the church we were at. I don't know where it was and don't know who it was, so I guess it doesn't matter if I'm bad-mouthing him. But we switched over here, and I think I was in, I think 5th grade maybe. And they liked the youth program, of which obviously Keith is doing a good job today, continuing on. And that's how we ended up here, and then a short hiatus to go to college, and found my way back to Chicago and back to Grace since probably 03, 02. So
Great. Well, it's such a great thing to have you here, and again, thanks for volunteering and jumping in. So we're talking about big questions this whole series, and they're not always easy questions to talk about.
I noticed, yeah.
Especially right when we dive in, like here it is, Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus. Maybe that's it's not the first thing you think of when you're going to do an interview, but. Last week I talked with Kelly Winters, and we talked about just who is Jesus is kind of the general
she gets
bit.
The easy question.
So clearly that was the easy question. We kept the hard stuff for you.
Hate to see what week 3 gets.
Well, it just gets more intense. You're going to have to come back in a week too. So we tackled that a little bit, and one of the things we kind of noticed in that conversation was that it's probably easier to talk about God than it is about Jesus. Jesus starts to get kind of specific, and now we're going to get even more specific than that. So we're talking about like why did Jesus actually come? Why did Jesus actually die on the cross? Some of these really kind of core of what it means to be Christian questions. And I think the first question, I just want to throw it right out there, is do you think Jesus' story, does it matter today? Is it still relevant? Is it still important? And do you think it's generally understood well in the world out there?
Yeah. So I think it still matters. Of course, I'm here at church. So
I like
the
that
easy answer. The easy answer. Of course, it still matters. I think the more interesting thing to think about is it clearly matters to us as Christians, as Lutherans, Catholics, Presbyterians, any denomination of Christianity. It matters to us clearly as a big part of our religion. But I think it's interesting to look at how much it matters in our world. And even if you are a non-Christian, if you're a non-believer, if you are either atheist and or agnostic, it doesn't make a difference which one, whatever your belief is, or just another religion in general. The story is, a lot of the parables, a lot of the teachings, a lot of the lessons, they're foundation of our life, of our rules, of our society, morals that we have. And you could say you're not a Christian, but you don't go around stealing. Even if you're an atheist, if say you're an atheist, well, do you steal then? Well, no. Well, that was a foundation in the in the Bible and in the Jesus stories. To treat others as you want to be treated, love your neighbor as yourself. So, I think it matters today just as much as it mattered back then. I think it matters among everyone. For the simple fact that we all follow those commandments, those guidelines, if you will, those parables, those teachings.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I had a really great English teacher in high school, and she would kind of say privately off to the side that, whether or not you believe in Jesus or Christianity or whatever, you should really read the Bible because the stories in there are so foundational to where we are as a society today. There's so much that even as you look through modern literature that alludes back to the Bible, and if you don't have any reference point for that, you can miss it in people and do it.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to any good story. Like you just said, literature. So I'm an English teacher. Part-time. I'm full-time high school teacher, but I teach media classes at LT and then also English. So literature is something I do, and I mean it's a good story. And any good story, people know what that story is, and that story tends to stick around. Shakespeare is not the Bible, but Shakespeare wrote some, or whoever wrote him. Some people argue it wasn't Shakespeare, but whoever wrote it. Same with the Bible. Whoever wrote this wrote some good stories, and those stories have stuck around for years. And stories don't get passed down if they're not good stories.
Exactly.
So, in what it makes a good story, well, good characters, good things, but also good lessons. And that's, so again, I think the story matters. I think it matters for the lessons that are in it. I don't know if it matters to everyone in the same way of, believing that Jesus Christ was your Savior or that He came to earth for you or not. But I think, there's something that your English teacher said that, you should read it. There's some good stories in there, some good life lessons in there, even if they're not the religious life. They're just life lessons that are in
absolutely. Well, and I think you're absolutely right. That's a part of what's been the staying power behind this story, behind the movement that we called Christianity, is that power of that story. And so to kind of drill down a little bit more specific then, within the story of Jesus, in my mind, I think the controversial part since the very beginning has been this idea that God would come as Jesus and God would die.
Okay.
That death part, it's like a big twist, right?
Yeah,
that's the big twist at the end.
But it's a good story,
right? For sure. But what do we do with that twist? If we imagine we've got this God who is all powerful, all knowing, all fill in the blank, did God have to die in order to do everything that Jesus was supposed to do? Did Jesus have to die? That's, I think, at the core of why did Jesus come is that question of death.
Yeah.
So it's a big question.
It
I don't know if you have
it is a big question.
Answer.
Well, if I had a definite answer, I might be in your chair. And if actually we'd all be in different chairs.
I would be in a different chair too.
We'd have a different pay scale. I don't think you could have done it without dying, and I'll say why. And I think it goes back to, and this is going to sound bad, the story.
Yeah, sure.
It's not because if you believe in an all-powerful, all-knowing God, he could have done it without dying because He's God. They could have just snapped the fingers and everybody's sins are forgiven, everything's fine. Don't worry about it, But there had to be some sort of thing that everybody was able to wrap their head around, but also make them question and go, "Is this necessary? Was this necessary?" Yeah. And this person, this God, whoever this God is, especially when we're talking way back then, when people were really figuring out what's going on, did he really just kill his son to save us? So I think I think you easily could have done it without it, or they could have done. God could have done it without it, but I don't think it would have had the same impact.
Yeah.
But in a way, I mean, for this story to have the impact that it did, I don't think you could have been like, and then God said, Jesus, don't do that again.
Not as dramatic,
not as dramatic, not as powerful, I guess.
Yeah.
So what God can give you, what God can then take away, but then God can also bring back. And I think that's the thing about the dying, that, we know Jesus died on the cross, but obviously we know He came back too.
Yeah, and I think if it ended there, that's a different story.
If it ended there, it's a different story. Yeah, now your God is a guy, oh my God, I'm scared of this thing. I don't want to take this off, and now I'm dead and then gone forever. I think that's the difference. I think I don't know how you do it without dying. I don't know how you do the next part without dying. I think that's what it comes down to. I think you could tell the story in a different way. I think it could have been done differently. But the resurrection part is what really the hope, the thing you could look back on and say, in the darkest of hours, there was light at the end of the tunnel, even if you couldn't see it in that moment.
Absolutely.
And in that moment, I imagine, on the hill on that Good Friday, nobody was sitting there going, well, 3 days from now it'll be fine. Everybody had to suffer. Everybody had to be sad. Everybody had to wonder, did we do the right thing? Whether you were on the side of Christianity or not.
Yeah.
And then I think 3 days later, you send that powerful message when the resurrection happens.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
What are we celebrating if not we were really, really down and God was literally dead?
Yeah. It's not the same story if Jesus was just real sick.
Yeah.
Or Jesus was sleeping for 3 days.
He almost died.
He almost died. He was real close.
Yeah.
So I think it is that power, and that it's not just, again, a marketing ploy, but it's the power of God can give and God can take, and God can even in your darkest times be the shining light when you don't think there's a light at the end of that tunnel.
I love that part of feeling connected to God because God came as Jesus and suffered,
and that too. Yeah, we didn't even touch on that really. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you were. I think you were going that way at the end of that a little bit, and there's something so powerful about that, because if you imagine, then again, this big question: why did Jesus come? Well, if there's no Jesus, we're all trying to figure out how are we connected to this God who is, the creator of the universe, this being beyond all of our comprehension, and
that no one's ever seen or heard from.
Exactly. And so it's hard to feel terribly close to someone or something like that. Like, you can feel, love and connection to it, but I think a huge part of Jesus is God becoming something that we can understand and see and touch and have a relationship with.
Yeah, and if you just do, leadership in general, a boss who tells you do this and do that, I'll sit in my office, versus a boss who says, I'm going to be in the trenches with you, making those calls, helping you put this presentation together, going to the clients. If you put it in a work perspective, for a lot of us who have jobs, the boss, for me anyway, the boss who is hands-on and who is there and suffering with you, and suffering, a good word in this case, obviously, to relate to Jesus. We didn't suffer. Jesus took all that for us, but he made it human. It made it realistic. Death is also something, I think
we're all going to be there at some point.
Exactly,
right?
and we could all wrap our heads around. We've all, we're all alive if we're watching this video. I assume we're
Hopefully.
in it. Yeah, we're alive. But we've known someone who's died. We've gone through pain and suffering, and we know what that's like. So, to know what those folks went through, what those followers went through, and what God then restored to them. It makes it more real. Is what it does. Yeah.
So there's that. Well, I think we're kind of coming towards the end. I just had one last question for you. I think I'm going to ask everybody this question. I'm not sure. I think it's a fun question. But imagine if you could meet Jesus and you could ask Jesus any question you wanted. Jesus would tell you a straight answer, if that's possible. I don't know. We're just going to pretend.
Not going to answer with another question, because I feel like that's what he would do.
That's kind of his MO, for sure.
I feel like my question would get answered with another question until one of us got frustrated, and probably me.
Who knows? But imagine you're going to get a straight answer. Is there any one question that you would want to ask Jesus?
That's a good one. The one I guess I wonder about the most is the Bible. Like the stories in the Bible. Are these true? Now, it's not to say I don't believe their story.
There's different truth kind of things in them, especially as an English teacher.
Exactly. There's a lot of story there, and are these parables you told? Are these stories of Noah's Ark? Are these things of Jonah and the whale? Are all this stuff? Did this really happen, or is just something that you guys?
Is this the way you decided to tell us the bigger
tell the story?
Kind of
because there is no, archaeologists every now and then say they've uncovered part of this, or they think this is part of that, but we don't know for sure.
Sure. There's only so much water in the world, kind of thing.
Exactly. And I wonder, but I wonder if I would ask that question, because I don't know if I want to know.
Is it nicer just to let's just
ignorance
wait,
is bliss,
right?
But because it's not that those stories are bad or I don't believe those stories. It's one of those did these all happen?
Is it based on a true story, or is it based on a true
story? Is it a true? Is the Bible a documentary, or is it a Hollywood feature? Which one are we looking at here? Because the Hollywood feature is 80% truth with the 20% Hollywood. Did we flash this story up a little? Did Jonah really or is did you just kind of not really throw him in a whale? Is that just symbolic for we took away his house? What was going on? Because a lot of these stories too, and I'm not telling you something that you don't know, and a lot of people don't know. They weren't written down at first.
Oh, sure.
They were told, and
it's the fish story,
exactly,
right? It was this big. It was a whale, right?
All of a sudden it is. He fed 5,000. It's like you'd be.
I heard it was 7,000, not including women and children.
Yeah,
right?
it's Jesus, did you really feed 5,000 people? And it was 20 people there. But Peter, he took the story and just kept blowing it up. By the time it got to you guys in the King James version, I was feeding the whole nation. That'd be my curiosity question, but I don't know if I'd want to ask it because I kind of, I don't know if I need to know the answer to that one.
Sure.
But on top of, like I said, not the superficial, but is heaven real? Is what happens when you die? These are the I guess the
things that
cliche
you always
questions.
have to take on faith. But if you could just know, it'd be really nice,
those. But if you only got one, which one of those would I choose? I don't know. So maybe we'd go for the bigger question. Because then if he answers that one straight, then that maybe answers a couple of the other ones.
No, that's for sure.
So
good.
But
So Chris, thank you so much for
no
chatting
problem.
with me. I
Happy
appreciate
to do it.
This was a good time. I don't know that we came to any answers, but I don't know that would be possible.
No, I don't.
Like you said, if we did, we'd probably have different jobs. So
exactly. It's these are the big questions.
Yeah.
You call it the big question, but it is the big question. I mean, it's you don't have an answer for it, and even if there was one that existed, I don't know if you'd want to know it anyway.
Exactly.
So.
Well, and I think the point is that we can talk about them, we can wonder about them, and that helps us kind of grow a little closer both to each other and in our faith. And that's what we're trying to do here. So thank you again
no
for coming out, and I appreciate it. For all of you watching at home, we hope you'll tune in every Wednesday. There's a new video up every single Wednesday. And again, every time I post a video, right below it on that same page, there's a little bit of a sermon from Pastor Leland Albright talking about the very same question Chris and I just talked about. So it may be the same. It'll probably be a lot different, but that's going to be really good too. So we hope you check that out, and we hope you'll leave us a comment right here at the bottom of this blog. Let us know what you think. Let us know what questions you have, how you might answer some of these questions different. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope this is meaningful to you, that these conversations help you on your own journey. Thanks, and we hope to see you next week.